Good afternoon. I'm Ann Collins Goodyear, one of the co-directors here at the Bowdoin College Museum of Art. I have the pleasure of co-directing with my husband, and today we are delighted to have an opportunity to introduce the artist Jim Dine, whose work is on view next door at the museum in our exhibition, Jim Dine, Last Year's Forgotten Harvest, which is on view until June 2nd. And as part of a husband-wife creative couple, it brings us special pleasure that Diana Michener, Jim Dine's partner in life, a creative springboard for him, is also here with us today. It makes this event extra special. The drawings that I hope you have all had an opportunity to see that are featured in our exhibition represent a series of remarkable gifts made by and on behalf of Jim Dine to the Museum of Art over the course of a decade. As Jim has noted, these pieces are, in many cases, works that remained with him, often over decades. The pieces gathered in our exhibition demonstrate the artist's remarkable commitment to the observation of individuals in his orbit, family members and close friends, artists and other intellectuals, studio assistants, and talented models. They also reveal a powerful commitment to the technique of drawing, a mechanism for recording likeness that enables the artist to document his engagement over time with his subjects, creating works that capture the powerful interaction between people and the evolution of relationships over time. I find deeply moving the strong analogy between the materiality of the paper and the marks on its surface with the maturation of human flesh itself, which comes to represent a personal history for all of us as we move through life. Jim Dine is an artist whose work has fascinated me for many years, and I count it a singular privilege to have had the opportunity to spend time with him during the process of developing this show, which is accompanied by a beautiful catalog designed by Jim's friend and portrait subject, Gerhard Steidl, a celebrated publisher and a talented creative himself. As is well known to this audience, Dine is one of the most highly regarded artists of our era. His talent, as demonstrated by this exhibition, was already evident during his undergraduate years, like that of Bowdoin's own students. And like Bowdoin's students, Jim has demonstrated a multifaceted creativity, breaking down boundaries between visual and performing arts, and between visual art and the language of poetry, becoming a prolific poet in addition to his accomplishments as a painter, sculptor, printmaker, and draftsman. I urge you to consult the detailed overview of Jim's remarkable career that is captured in our catalog. But for now, I will simply note that Jim's work has been exhibited internationally since the early 1960s. He has been the subject of dedicated exhibitions at such institutions as the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis, the Albertina in Vienna, the Salman R. Guggenheim Museum in New York, the Bibliothèque Nationale de France in Paris, the Centre National d'Art et de Culture, Georges Pompidou, also in Paris, the British Museum in London, the Kunsthaus, and the Kunsthaus Göttingen, to name but a few venues. He is the subject of numerous catalogs and books, and is the author himself of several volumes of poetry. And in 2003, he was named the Commandeur de l'Ordre des Arts et Lettres by the French government. This coming summer, Jim's work will be featured in an exhibition curated by Gerhard Steidl at the Palazzo Rocca Cantinari, Corfu, in coordination with the 60th Venice Biennale. We are honored, thus, to share his work here at Bowdoin at this exciting moment. As with any ambitious exhibition, numerous individuals have contributed to its success, and I would like to offer my thanks to a group of people who have played an outsized role in making possible Jim Dine last year's Forgotten Harvest. My first thanks is to Jim Dine himself for his extraordinary generosity, which includes not only the drawings donated to the museum, his time speaking with me and answering questions, but also his generous donation of his honorarium and proceeds from the sale of books, posters, and t-shirts related to this exhibition to the Bowdoin Quill, a preeminent student literary journal now in its 125th year, thanks to an impressive student editorial board led by May Bach. We thank you, Jim, for stimulating the voices of emerging artists and scholars. I also wish to extend my thanks to Jim Dine's wife, the photographer Diana Michener, and his son, the oboist Matt Dine, for their generosity in donating drawings by Jim to the BCMA for this exhibition. And on that note, I am delighted to welcome Jim's sons and portrait subjects, Matt and Jeremy Dine, to Bowdoin together with this family, with their families. We're so glad that you can be with us. Thank you. I am also deeply grateful to each of Jim's assistants, in particular Daniel Clark, Olymp Rakana-Weiler, and Jerry Coppola, for their unceasing support of this project. And I wish to express my deep appreciation to Ruth Fine, also with us today, for introducing Jim to Bowdoin and for her generous encouragement of all aspects of this exhibition. My thanks goes as well to the incredible team here at the BCMA for all they have done to make the exhibition and today's event possible. And I wish to acknowledge the Becker Fund for its important financial support. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, I wish to thank each of you who is here to celebrate this exhibition with us, both in person and virtually, and for being part of this undertaking. Following our formal presentation, in which Jim is joined by his wife, Diana, a frequent subject of his portraits and a highly regarded artist in her own right, we look forward to welcoming your questions and comments. And now, please join me in welcoming Jim Dine and Diana Michener.
When Ruth Fine suggested that I was looking for places to give things in my old age, Ruth suggested Bowdoin. I think because of the reputation of the museum, but also because of the stewardship and the curating ability of Anne. So we've had quite a long relationship giving these drawings here. And as you can see downstairs, it's beautifully presented. And I'm very grateful for that because that's why I gave them, so the work would be cared for. Otherwise, they would have remained in a drawer and who knows what had gotten their hands on them, you know? Could have been a disaster. But I've been a very prolific protein artist in my life, and I've produced a lot of work, and a lot of it is gone out to institutions, to private collectors, etc. But but at the end of my life now, in these what I call winter years, there is the concern. I don't want to bullshit anybody. This is one of the reasons I gave them. I'm not a saint. It's because, inheritance tax. It's been a great pleasure to know that they will be cared for and that my heirs won't be stuck with the bill. So it's been a practical consideration, And I'm nothing if not practical. Today, I'm just here to see the show and to talk a little bit about drawing, because it means so much to me. And I thought the best way to talk about my practice of drawing from the model or people I know would be to ask Diana, because she's the most drawn downstairs. There's about 8 drawings of her over a period of 20 years. I wanted to ask her a few questions about sitting, because it's an interesting relationship between me and the sitter. And one of the reasons I make the drawings, like portrait drawings of specific people, not just anonymous models, is because of what I get from it, selfishly. I get hours of social conversation, gossip, and the ability to observe and not make people nervous so that they won't move. When I talk, when I draw, I always talk to the sitter, and I learn a lot about the sitter, but mainly the sitter learns about me too. So anyway, come on, Diana. What's it feel like? You know what I mean?
Well, it's a complicated situation to be drawn by your husband. First of all, it's a big honor that he asked you, because you're not really sure that that's who he's going to, why would he knows me, why would he draw me? But he did, or has done that. And the thing is, there are several things. It's quite frightening to be drawn by anybody, but particularly by him, because he's always saying that it's very important in art to look. You have to look deeply. But actually, what he does is gaze at you. And when he's gazing at you, you don't know what he's thinking. And so it's always a very dynamic movement between us, because it's silent, the gazing that he does. Although he can be telling me a story from his childhood, or he can be telling me some gossip he just learned yesterday. But I know that there's something else that's going on, and I don't have access to that. And
let me ask you this. Do you feel, though, as a sitter, that you are participating in the making of the work? Or are you just, as they say now, an object?
I don't want that description of me or anybody.
That's what I mean. How do you feel?
I don't feel that. I feel, obviously, because you asked me to sit, you want me to sit.
Yeah, but do you feel part of the process?
I felt that I agreed, and so I'm part of the process. But I'm not part of the deep contemplation. I have my own thoughts about you. That's the interesting thing, is that I think the model has, quite a lot of thoughts about the person that's drawing them. And also the thing that's amazing about it, we know each other, but it's a very intimate, almost disturbing relationship, because in some ways it's very, I want to say it's sort of erotic, but it's not erotic the way you think. It's with these eyes that are constantly on you, and you have no idea what's behind the eyes. And that's a very exhilarating in some way, but complex relationship to have. I mean, I don't know what you're thinking. Then I look at the drawing and I don't want to.
Well, the pleasure for me of drawing anyone I know is to try to make them come off the paper in some way and to give the viewer an idea of this invention I've made. It's always, that's what you're doing. You're inventing, reinventing what you're looking at your way. It's a kind of, not just interpretation, but it's a translation of what you see that your hand then responds to. And I always considered it a privilege to draw from people, a privilege for people to sit still and shut up and let me get on with my work. But there's so full of pitfalls for the artist. You keep failing. You keep making a mark. It's the wrong mark. But I'm different than a lot of people. I never throw anything away so that my marks become grist for the mill. And I can build the drawing from those mistakes. For instance, the drawing of Susan Rothenberg, the painter, the late painter downstairs, has two hands, the same hand. I left the one because I couldn't get it right, but I thought it looked pretty good with the other one. And like I say, I don't throw things away. So it's always fun to do. It's always a pleasure to sit there and to look. When I was younger and when my family were younger, and my sons were younger, it was great to get them to sit still and to draw them. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I saved them because they looked really cute now. You know, I thought, and it brought back it's very nostalgic for me and big memories. But mainly it's the privilege of drawing. And whether it's Diana or whoever it is, or somebody I hardly know, it's the idea that somebody will sit there and take the time and let me go all over them with my eyes and try to make what is sometimes absurdly called art.
But it's always a surprise, too. I'm sure that everybody that sits for you, when they look at what you've drawn, it's a surprise because, first of all, there's the joy of your line and what you've made on the paper. And that's very unexpected because when you're sitting there, you don't know exactly what you're putting down on the paper, or you don't know at all what you're putting down on the paper. And then when you see it, you either become involved, you have to, by looking at it, become involved with your ability.
A lot of people who draw people, other people, or who draw friends, often it comes out the way they want it to look, but it doesn't look like the person. But it's very important to me that it looks like who it is. And because it's a way to make a kind of 3D memory. For instance, downstairs is a drawing of a man called Mark Hampton, who was a friend of mine in the last century, who died in the 90s, at the end of the 90s. But when I came in today and saw him there, I had him back. It was very moving for me that I had captured the visage of someone, and that's how I remembered him. So it was selfishly, it can't mean anything to you all, but it means a lot to me that I got him back today. There is that.
Do you feel that often when you look at people you've drawn? I mean,
not like I did today, just then with Mark. But I had sort of gotten an inkling of that in the catalog. I mean, these drawings, many of them have just been in drawers for 40 years. So it's good to see them again.
But when you're having your conversations, because you're a great storyteller, do you think about your stories? Because sometimes you talk a lot when you draw.
I talk a lot all the time, so it's just.
I know. You do really talk when you draw. And sometimes I wonder, is it just?
I'm in these days. I'm into drawing. I mean, because of this show, and because of the book that Dan and I made with Garrett Steidl. Because of that book, it got me back into drawing. Because I knew there was going to be a show. Because I was starting to give things to Anne. Then I would say 25% of the drawings downstairs I made for the occasion, to fill out the book, to fill out the collection. I think I will keep on giving Bowden drawings because it's a great place. Come on. Because it was a little test to see if she'd take care of them, you know? But since I'm pleased with the show, then I'll continue because it's a theme. For instance, the Albertina in Vienna has, I think they have 250 self-portraits. And I've continued to give them because they made a great show. And I saw the conservators, what the conservators could do on paper, and I saw how they store them. It means a lot to me that they're not just. Dan and I went. Dan Clark, who is my associate, and and wife. Dan Clark and I went to see a museum in America, which shall remain nameless, with the idea of making a big major gift of works on paper. And we asked to see the facilities, and it was stupid. It was just, it was like committing suicide. You know, you give the paper and you'll never be there in 50 years because it wasn't cared for. So it means a lot to me that the way things are cared for and conserved. But what I was saying was to make the show, when we made the show and the idea of the show, I started to draw again. And that's been over the last 6 or 8 years, I think, don't you?
But will you talk about the portraits you made during COVID, those ones, the self-portraits?
Well, they're not here.
No,
but during
just
COVID,
the idea of drawing.
During COVID, I was, like a lot of people, just stuck in their house. And I had this idea of just to make self-portraits. And just while I'm stuck in the house, and I had other things to do. I have a little garden, and I could garden. And then I took my bicycle and went to my painting studio, and I wasn't supposed to, and this kind of thing. But I kept on. I had the mirror next to my bed, and I had a chair there, and I was this far from myself. And there's nobody better to draw than yourself because you stay still. You do what you're told to do. And I did this over 2.5 years, and I got a record of the flesh. And it was very exciting to see how the organism goes down. By that I mean metaphorically and also physically, what gravity does. And so, you start off being sort of robust and tough, you end up like an old baseball glove. It could be, if you're vain. And I have no vanity when it comes to drawing myself. I really want to record the years because nature has made this incredible thing, your face, and what it then becomes as it's on the way down. And it's really exciting, for me, to invent from that, not absurdly, the pockets of flesh, how they move, and the way the flesh leaves the skull is really exciting visually. So it was a pleasure. Those the two hands of Susan's. But I mean, I thought the drawing was enhanced by leaving that memory of mine not being able to get it to work.
What do you think the big difference is between drawing yourself and drawing somebody else?
I don't, I mean, it's more intimate to draw yourself. And not only that, it's more accurate. And it's also, I never get tired of it. And I get tired of drawing other people. That's when I know the drawing is finished, I just stop because I can't take it anymore. Either I can't take the conversation or I'm not getting it right, and I like to come back on things. I mean, there's a drawing of my friend Vincent Broca, maybe it's coming up, that I did over about 3 years, and I kept taking it out. Because I've always felt, even when I taught, I would say, after a student would make a drawing, I'd say, please rub it out now and do it again. Because I figured if you can do it once, you can do it again. It's good discipline. But with Vincent, I kept, as I got to know him better and as I got to see it, I wasn't seeing him. So I'd take out part of it, bring it back. And I lost a lot. I lost a lot of accuracy, but I gained a lot of accuracy in interpretation, if that's what you could say. I mean, I got to know the drawing better. So it didn't end up as beautiful as it began, but it became more of a thing that I had created and had made still and like sculpture. That's Mark Hampton. That's what I was saying. But it's too big here on the screen. The way it is downstairs is very subtle, I thought. He was very funny. He was a very funny guy. So I had a wonderful time drawing him. I drew my son Matthew when he was 15. There's about 6 of those. He was an aspiring oboist, at which he became, and I loved the intensity of his practicing, and I liked, because I'm very involved with objects, I liked the instrument itself. These were shown in Washington at the National Gallery when I had a drawing show there. I think I made them for the occasion. It's really one work. I felt it was one work.
I didn't talk very much then.
You didn't talk. Hardly at all.
I know.
Hardly at all, yeah.
And you kept saying, sit still.
I like to distress the paper. Sometimes I get angry at it and I'll put water on it and rub it with my hands, and then I try to bring it back. That's my process of resuscitating. I feel like an alchemist trying to, make take shit and make gold out of it. That's a challenge and it's a pleasure in drawing for me.
But you like to have the drawings around because you keep
I love to keep them around, yes.
Because you keep
For
adding.
years sometimes.
Yeah. You touch them often.
I go by them and touch. I go by them and make a mark. It's made up of many marks. I mean, I'm very respectful and love, for instance, Matisse drawings and portraits, one line, fabulous aquatints like that. But I have no interest in reducing. I only want addition in anything. In anything.
Do you change your feeling about the drawing because you travel so much, and so you go away and there's a drawing, and then you might come back a couple of months later? Do you?
I always do. I always go back. If I've come back and I've left the drawing, I come back and work on it. And it always looks different to me because I've changed. I mean, we change as we go along, you know? And I think that shows on the paper. Some drawings I gave, I don't know who they are. I don't know who this is. An anonymous model. I mean, I used her, and it's from 75, and I was living in Vermont, and I used my neighbors, but I don't remember the neighbor. Maybe you could ask me questions. I'm sick of talking. Yeah.
When you look at somebody or a subject, do you find that like you try and take in the whole image, or do you find that you refine your focus like very, very?
My method is to start small with just a part like an ear or an eye, and build out so that I can take visual measurements, so that I can then I correct, you know, like how is it from here to here, you know, or from here to here. It's very important to me and very exciting for me to do that, to get it right. And sometimes I think I got it right and I come back in a week and it's like, I can't believe I wasn't seeing it, you know, but that's how I start. I don't start with one big thing. Although when I draw from photographs, and I do sometimes, and some things down there are, for instance, the portrait of Max Beckmann, the great artist, I took from a photograph. It's more, I try to do the whole thing and then go in and correct and make the details right and make it not look like I drew from a photograph.
You asked Diana how it felt to her as the subject while you were drawing her. And I was wondering, or if she was part of the process. I believe that was what you asked. If she felt like she was part of the process. You as the drawer, in what ways do you feel that the subject that you're drawing is part of the process?
Well, without them, there'd be no drawing, you know? I mean, they're various degrees of importance to me, you know? I mean, an anonymous model, I gave the drawing because I thought it was a good drawing, but it was not very important to me because I didn't know who it was, although I liked the drawing. But it's more important to me to see my friend Gerhard Steidl in various states because it's a way of memorializing him, of my memory, but it's also a way, because I see him all the time, from time to time and during the year, I like to see what I got, you know, and did I do it well or not? You know, some of these I find disturbing because they don't look enough like him, but they are good drawings, I guess. They could be said that, you know?
Why did you choose Max Beckmann?
Why?
Why?
Oh, because I look like him.
Yeah.
I have a small technical question. When I took drawing courses, work with charcoal, finish a drawing, you spray it with some kind of fix. Your charcoals apparently stay with you for years unfixed because you're back and forth getting them. Do you ever come to a point where you are convinced that you're done and you fix it? Or?
Yeah, sometimes I fix them on purpose and then keep going. because it keeps the charcoal stable. And therefore, I can then get looser on top or be more accurate. I use a knife too sometimes to take paper back to white. But eventually I fix it. I hate fixative. Because it deadens it. The charcoal by itself sitting up on the paper is beautiful, But everybody wants to keep their drawings, Unless you throw them away, And I don't throw anything away.
We want to thank everybody for your excellent questions. Daly and Amanda both have microphones, and we're just going to ask everybody to use them. You won't hear it amplifying, but it's very helpful for the video recording. So if you don't mind, we just want to capture these fabulous questions. Excellent. So Jim, I'll let you select, but Amanda and Daly will.
Two questions. What would be the typical amount of time you spend with a sitter? And then the other question is, these drawings span decades, yet I don't detect a significant change in your style of drawing. And I wonder if you could comment on that.
Give me the first question first.
The typical amount of time you spend with a sitter.
No, usually no more than 2 hours. Can't do more. My back hurts, and always did. I always just figured you get tired. I don't want to lose my concentration. Sometimes I spend much less time. What's the next one?
Over decades. The drawings.
You think they remain? I don't think so. Okay. I thought I got better. I'm not kidding you.
Okay. Fair enough.
What is your impetus for adding color in such a selective way on some of your images?
I have very little. I think it's almost cheating to use color. I use it sometimes to amuse myself, to bring it up a little bit, when I don't know what to do, I'll use it. But most of the time, I'd rather do it in black and white. I'd rather use a very, very soft pencil. I usually use an 8B pencil and my fingers and a hard eraser, or I use the charcoal with my fingers and a kneaded eraser.
We had this discussion about drawing from painting from a photograph versus painting from life in my painting class here last week. And I'm just curious, you said you're trying, in the Beckman drawing, you're trying to overcome the feeling that it was drawn from a photograph.
I always would try to overcome that.
And what is it you're trying to overcome?
Sorry?
What is it you're trying to overcome? What are the things?
That it's a photograph.
Yeah.
That I'm drawing from a photograph.
Right.
But in Beckman's case, what am I going to do?
So when what do you get from drawing from life that's different from that? Another way to frame the question.
Because you feel the skin, you feel the flesh, you know that the person can talk back to you, you know that they are somehow alive. That's what with the photograph. When you draw from a photograph, you try to make it alive, and that's interesting too, to try to bring it to life. I mean, I wouldn't want anybody to say, oh, that's from a photograph, but of course it has to be. That has to be. But the drawing I did of Dan Clark is from a photograph. I was in a hurry, he was in a hurry, and we had to get it done. The book was going to press, and I hadn't done a picture of him yet. And I worked with him every day, so it was, an imperative.
So in some of your drawings, you kind of, right here, in some of your drawings, you kind of leave out some features. How do you decide which features to emphasize and which features?
Somebody's got to talk for you because.
Oh.
How do you decide which features you keep and don't keep?
In a portrait? I mean, how do I decide to keep the nose the way it is?
Yeah, so some of the portraits in front.
Erase the mouth completely. Here.
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, I do what's necessary. I mean, I do what's necessary to make a complete drawing. And I was actually looking at this drawing before when this guy was talking to me. I was sitting on the bench looking at it, and I didn't remember making all the changes and all. I didn't remember the layers that went into it. And that drawing is part of a series over 2 or 3 years where I maybe made 150 drawings, but came away with 10 a year. I didn't tear up the drawings. I went over them and over them and over them, correcting. I was trying to teach myself to draw from the figure in a so-called like an artist, you know? I mean, not just use the talent I was born with and always drawing, but to be quite indebted to the past, which I am anyway. But I really don't know how to say anything else than that. I mean, you know, it happens, it happens. It's not so, with me anyway, there's no system. It's what I get. It's also, you know, it's also like if you're a chicken, you don't choose what egg you're going to lay. You know what I mean? It's like it's chosen for you, you know.
Jim, I have a question about your childhood and when you sort of realized that you loved art and you started to conceptualize yourself as, I'm an artist.
It didn't start with me loving art. It started with me knowing that that's all I could do. That's it. That's all I could do. I was maybe 2 years old, and I became deeply antisocial, not cute. I did not perform for the adults. I wanted to be alone by myself. And I carry with it, to this day, personality defects because of that. I get pissed off easily when people intrude upon me. It's because, I mean, I always wanted to be alone and to express what I had. That's what I saw. And it wasn't like wasn't hit with a lightning bolt. It's genetic. I mean, I was born with these hands. Really, not absurdly. Yeah.
If you haven't read Louise Gluck's one and only novel called Marigold and Rose, I think you will enjoy it. It's a study, it's a novel of 2 twin girls, their very first year, and how they react to the world. And one of them is exactly who you were. And it's fascinating.
Maybe they're both who I was.
That's also. But at any rate, I highly suggest it's very short.
Oh, well, thank you.
Louise Gluck, who won the Nobel Prize in Poetry. It's
I know.
novel.
Great. Oh.
Hello. I have a 2-part question. So would you like me to ask them one after the other, or?
Anything, let's go.
So my first question is, how do you find the creative processes of writing and painting to inform one another?
How do I keep them together, you mean?
How do they inform one another?
Oh, it's just the same guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess off of that, do you find writing poetry to also be an act of translation and an act, like how do you said earlier painting is like translating like the flesh into like paper. And how do you find like poetry to be similar or different to that?
My method is the same. I correct, I put down, I correct. I find things in the outside world, found objects, I put them into the thing and see if it works. It's a collage method, really. As I just said, I was born with this in my hands. But poetry is different because you come to language probably later than I did with the art. And I'm dyslexic and didn't know that. I thought I was stupid. And because of my age, that's how primitive people were. And so I didn't get a chance to exercise my love of the American language and my interest in it in an official way, that is in school or anything, because I couldn't read and I couldn't. But eventually, in my late teens, early 20s, I got into reading poetry because it was easier than reading fiction. And I mean easier in the sense of length, that it wouldn't take so much hard work. And I realized that I heard poetry in my head. And I realized that I could relate to poets who I knew personally. I could relate to them better than a novel. The poets, I mean, I heard them speaking, and they wrote like they spoke, and they created with the language, and I was excited by that. And so I didn't write poetry until I was in my 20s, and I was not very proud of it. It's not like some of my early drawings I liked. I didn't know. I got to a point where I started to be able to be self-critical, and then I got really excited. But one of the things I do, and you may be interested in that, is that because of my dyslexia, I have a problem with a small page. And because I'm an artist and used to drawing, I often start a poem by writing on the wall or putting sheets of paper, tacking them up from the top of the ceiling down, and then go on a ladder and draw with charcoal or with ink, and then I correct like whiteout with gesso, and I keep that up until I can get the poem in place. And so it's very related to my method of drawing.
Thank you. I'm also dyslexic, so I should try that.
It's copyrighted.
One more question back here. I was struck in the show by the variety of scale and paper, and I didn't know if the subject ever dictated that or if that was how you kind of arrive at those decisions when you're going.
I mean, why is there so many different kinds of paper?
Well, yeah.
I'm a very avid, to say the least, printmaker, and I've always had supplies of paper, or gone to paper stores, or talked to printers who traded me paper, because I like different kinds to print on. And I often find stuff, particularly on the floor I can find stuff. I like picking things up that I've walked on for a long time and have got a patina. Often you find in my drawings a footprint from my shoe, and I don't leave it there as a kind of like flexing my muscles. It's because I think when you find something that looks good, you leave it. In terms of the scale, it's just how I feel that day. Sometimes I often start a portrait drawing, larger than it ends up. I get it down. It becomes smaller as I get it more accurate the way I want it. There's a drawing of my doctor in Paris. It's called Frederick Lopez, and it went from the size of the paper in his head, and it just kept getting smaller as I got, without him there, I got it down more and got it more to the essence of who I saw him as, is. Yeah, boss.
You mentioned that you revisit drawings over years, and you just said something about that too, that I wondered if when you revisit it, are you relying on memory, or is it something in the drawing that you're responding to that you feel you need to change?
No, I come upon them again and think I want to work on them. That's just the way it is. I mean, and sometimes I leave it, you know.
Is there any time limit on your drawings, or do you just decide when they're done, or do you kind of have an open-ended approach to them?
It's open-ended.
I was wondering if you find that people in your life like will perform for you in certain ways, knowing that you're an artist, or like when they sit for you, will they
You mean,
perform and act in
are
certain
there
ways?
affectations
Yes.
that they have? I wouldn't draw them if they did. I mean, it would be too boring. You know, I need them just to be who they are. I don't mind if they move a bit. We talk all the time. And that's also interesting because the mouth, for instance, changes continually as they're speaking. But if they were, what do you mean perform?
Like if they act in a certain way for your expectations.
You mean like
I don't know, they know you as an artist, and so they.
You mean posing like?
Yeah, posing, or even like just adjusting.
I kick them out. I mean, what a stupid thing to do. We said enough, no?
Jim, I wondered if I could have the pleasure maybe of asking a final wrap-up question, which is really actually a question for both you and Diana. And I just want to thank you both. The insights that you have each brought out together have been so fascinating. And I thank everybody for your fascinating questions. So here's the question. Diana, you are, like Jim, an extraordinarily talented artist. Your medium is a little bit different, although Jim, I know, has experimented with photography as well, and that you are, I believe, primarily a photographer, and you have made figure studies through photography. Jim, I love the way in which you describe your portraits of Diana as part of a multi-year conversation that has flowed between the two of you. So what I'm interested in is whether you each find that your own creative practice has been influenced or affected by what you see the other doing. And through those conversations that you each have, not only as husband and wife, but also as creative artists yourselves.
Go ahead yourself.
Well, when I was a photographer, I became a photographer because of her. And I loved her photographs. I loved the life of a photographer. I thought that was amazing. So I did start to photograph because of her. But, and I stopped as I changed as a painter, as I became a different painter. And I didn't feel the need that I wanted to photograph anymore. That's all, it's just that. But funny enough, Diana is a very gifted draftsman, and she doesn't think she is. So I get to see things that she finds unfinished and etc., but which I can learn from,
I think the best thing is that, first of all, we look at each other's work. We fight. We disagree. We agree. We help each other. The great thing is that he is so extraordinary that I don't have to worry about being in any kind of competition with this person. I can open my mind. I'm not on the defensive. So whatever he talks about, I'm free to bring my own self to it because I'm not nervous. I know that he's way up there, and I'm asking his opinion of something on my work. It's just on my work, not on anything to do with him. But also, I'm free to talk about his work, and I think I'm practically the only one that tells you the truth.
That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. There are others who have the nerve to tell me the truth.
Not many. But anyway, it's fun because we're not in the same discipline. And so what we bring to each other when we talk, I think is enlightening.
Well, it's helpful to me. Diana's a very good critic of my painting. And I tend to think about what she says after she's left, as pissed off as I am.
I know. It's a problem.
I want to just thank you both for sharing truth with us. I want to thank everybody for your fascinating questions. And what's wonderful is that this conversation is really the jumping off point for many more conversations that can continue next door in the exhibition. We hope that you can all come join us in the show and at a reception where we can continue to connect with one another. Jim and Diana, thank you so very much for all you have done for Bowdoin, for our community.